So we're told one side of the story, of course, from the United States corporate press about Venezuela, uh, and it's all propaganda, meaning lies, meaning that the people bringing you the news are the people you can't trust in the United States. And I wish I was lying about that. I wish that was even hyperbole, but it's not. You can't trust them. Joyanne Reed, Brian Williams. Brian Williams gets caught lying about the war. And what is his punishment? He gets his own show on MSNBC where he gets to sit in front of 20 flags. The guy who lied about war sits in front of a bunch of flags and gives you the news. And he has orgasms in his pants when Trump launches a missile. He launches a missile every time Trump launches a missile. How about that? So what they don't tell, and they're actively lying to you about Venezuela. They're actively lying to you about Venezuela. They're all Chris Hayes, Rachel Maddow, Lawrence O'Donnell. Of course, Chris Matthews is. Of course, that guy. Jake Tapper, Wolf Blitzer. They're all Anderson Cooper. They're all lying to you about Venezuela. And here's a story they'll never tell you about Venezuela. Watch this.
To make Alice's life a bit easier by delivering 100 gallons of free heating oil each winter.
So I don't know if you see this. It says low-income Americans having to turn to Venezuela for heating assistance.
And to make Alice's life a bit easier by delivering 100 gallons of free heating oil each winter. She is a 4-year beneficiary of the Citgo Venezuela Heating Oil Program, which provides free heating oil to 500,000 poor Americans living in low-income neighborhoods and shelters throughout the country. President Hugo Chavez, often demonized by Washington, helped launch the program in 2005 following Hurricanes Katrina and Rita.
All I know is that he was kind. He was kind to the people in the United States, and I'm sure he rules differently, like Obama rules differently. And who are we to tell these people how they should live, or how? I mean, are they invading our country? But they're not. Mm-hmm. They're being generous to give us what comes out of their earth at no charge. Mm-hmm. So, could you really have ill feelings against them? Yeah, I'm thankful for it. I really am.
In an interview with the Venezuelan newspaper El Universal, America's leader fell short of expressing similar sentiments of gratitude. President Obama recently accused the Chavez government of restricting human rights and taking threatening steps against democratic values.
The Venezuelan leader didn't mince words while responding directly to his U.S. counterpart.
You know what, Obama? I feel sorry for you. Just ask the black communities of your country what you mean to them. You're the greatest disappointment of recent years. Go ask the poor people of your country. You're a great disappointment to them.
It's time that we stopped minding everybody else's business and took care of business here. We have children that are graduating from college with $80, $90, $100,000 that they have to pay back. It's ruining them. And they can't get a job.
A struggle getting that much harder in the land of opportunity.
So I don't know exactly what year that was from. So Obama was president. It was after 2000, after they had started giving free heating oil to low-income Americans. Who did that? Did Exxon do that? Did BP do that? Did Obama do that? No, it was Venezuela did that through Citgo. Helping out poor people in America. You know who doesn't help out poor people in America? America. 30 million people still don't have health care in America. We're going to invade someone else's country to fix it for them. And if you fucking think that's a good idea, then you deserve every horrible thing that ever comes your way from government. And if you're a news reporter and you're repeating CIA talking points about what's happening in Venezuela, remember, before the war criminals can launch an invasion and overthrow another government and steal their resources, before they do that, the war criminals first have to launch a narrative. And the narrative is always the same. That guy's a dictator. That guy's oppressing his own people. That guy's got violent opposition. He's got death squads against his own people, and his people are hurting. We need to bring them liberty, democracy, and economic good well-being. So that's exactly what they said about Saddam Hussein. That's exactly what they said about Muammar Gaddafi. Exactly what they said about Assad. Now that's exactly what they're saying about this guy. And when you repeat that stuff, what you are doing is you are affirming the CIA's narrative for invasion. So that's a mistake. Because what they're doing is making a moral case for invasion. And if you agree with their moral case for invasion, but then stop and say, but we shouldn't go in, now you're the immoral person. You see how that works? Do you see that's why they use the same playbook over and over? If you agree this guy's gassing his people and killing children, how could you not be for it? Just like the first Gulf War. They said they were the Iraqi soldiers were taking babies out of incubators and throwing them on the ground. That wasn't happening. That was made up. But that's what turned Americans' popular opinion towards going into Iraq the first time. That story that was given on TV in front of the Congress, that was fake. So they do it over and over. It's the same thing. These are bad guys. They're killing babies. They're gassing their own people. They're blah, blah, blah. And we got to go help those people. So if you're a reporter and you repeat that stuff, any of the prerequisites that they have to set for their invasion, if you're repeating that, you're not a reporter. You're not doing journalism. You're doing propaganda for the state, which is the opposite, I bet, of why you got into news. But that's clear. But that's most people, by the way. I'm pointing the finger at almost everyone in news. There's only a handful of places that haven't done that haven't affirmed the CIA's talking points for invasion before they said stop. We shouldn't go in. But I agree with everything the CIA says. Everything Elliot Abrams and John Bolton and Trump say about Venezuela, I'm going to agree with instead of debunking it. And again, that's why we have a show. We have a show because the news media sucks just that bad. They can't even tell you the truth about Venezuela. They can't even tell you the truth about their own election here in California. They won't even tell you the truth about the 2016 primary. They won't tell you the truth about fucking anything that's really important. They lie to you about Medicare for all. CNN tells you it costs more than the system we have now. So, Steph, is that kind of stunning, that video? That was stunning to me when I came across it on Twitter.
Jimmy, of course it was stunning. And to be able to see an American talk about that, this person actually has helped her life survive. Yep. Is stunning. I've never seen that. I was sitting here going, okay.
I didn't know there was an oil assistance program.
I'd never ever heard of an oil assistance program.
From Venezuela to poor, low-income people in the United States.
And of course, why would they ever publicize something like that?
Of course not.
Why would they ever share with us how another country is actually helping poor Americans,
poor Americans
when we're not helping poor Americans?
How about some aid in the United States for Americans? How about that?
The program has provided $500 million in worth of heating assistance.
Oh, so this program from Venezuela to the United States, does it say when it ended? Or... Okay, so can you tell me when it started or ended? That would be fantastic.
And what was most shocking about that was the interpretation of what Chavez was saying about Obama.
Yeah.
Like my head, I couldn't believe it. What a disappointment he's been to a particular population of his own country.
Yeah, to the black community. That's what Chavez was saying, that he's a disappointment, which is backed up by the reporting done by the New York Times after the 2016 election, when they went to the battleground state of Wisconsin and talked to minorities in barbershops and asked them how they voted, and turned out half of them didn't vote, and the half who didn't vote for Hillary. They voted. They wrote in their own name or someone else's, and they didn't regret it. And so that's what Chavez was referring to, because those people in those communities, what they said in that article was that we voted for Barack Obama twice, and our lives got worse.
The whole idea that our country is ready to, supportive of an overthrow of another country makes no sense to me. Like, how many people have we talked to that they are for this coup? And I just don't understand how many things in the United States history of this century, just this century, do you have as evidence to show that maybe we shouldn't invade another country for a while until we get our fucking shit together?
It's amazing. And again, the newspapers go right along with it. The newspapers, the Washington Post, the New York Times, they're going to push an invasion and a coup and all this stuff at the top of their lungs. just like they did in Libya, just like they did in Syria, just like they did in Iraq both times. They're horrible. Again, that's why I do the show. That's why we have the show, because they suck that badly. And this idea that, you have to have respect for journalism, they're horrible. They're horrible. And more journalists should spend, if there are the good journalists should spend more time calling out the horrible journalists. But they don't. Even Aaron Matei, who's been the most polite a guy pointing out how the mainstream news media is pushing this Russiagate propaganda and how there's no evidence for it. Even it's like he's too polite about it. He's very, even keeled and polite, and he doesn't make he just keeps pointing out facts to people. People keep smearing him and yelling at him. It's amazing to see. So again, there you go. That's something I had to go to RT to get that. Had to go to RT to get that info. Because your American corporate news is lying to you on the regular, gaslighting you on the regular, keeping information from you on the regular. And look at the country you're living in. It's a result of the failure of the Fourth Estate. And I told you what happened, right? There used to be all these news media companies. There used to be 50 of them, or if not more. And they would keep an eye on the corporations and the politicians and the criminals to make sure they didn't get too cozy. But what the criminals figured out was they could just buy the news people. Why don't we just buy them? And that's what they did. So now there's only 6 companies that bring you all the news.
Jimmy, was that a Republican thing that happened?
That was Bill Clinton.
It was a fucking Democrat?
That was Bill Clinton. That was Bill Clinton and Al Gore who did the Telecommunications Act of 1996, which took us from 50 giant media companies down to 6.
The next thing.
So now every cable show, every radio show, every TV show, magazine, newspaper you see or read comes from one of 6 companies. So we live in a dictatorship here in the United States. But the dictator is not a guy. The dictator is the nameless, faceless corporate state, the one that's surveilling us constantly, right? We have private companies that do that, Booz Allen, many other. And they're dictating right now. Twitter, Facebook, they get to dictate what free speech is in America. Corporate. I've been reading a little bit about this, and it's called inverted totalitarianism. Chris Hedges talks about it a lot. It was pioneered, the idea, by this guy Sheldon Wolin. I'm pretty sure that's the guy. I have to, but anyway, what's happening. Is that we do live in a totalitarian state. It's just we don't have one dictator. We have a nameless, faceless corporate state that dictates everything to us, and it starts with healthcare. They tell us what healthcare we can get and what we can't, and if we're going to go bankrupt, if we're allowed to have a life or not. The bank just takes your house. There's no due process. The bank just takes your house. You can't foreclose on a bank. They can foreclose on you. So, and the corporations own the government. So that's why you have to, if the government, the people running the government are owned by the corporations, we live in a corporate totalitarian state, and those cops actually are enforcing rules written by the corporation. So that's what we're living in. And that's what they'll never show you on cable news. And that's why the Washington Post sucks and the New York Times sucks. And people on lefty news don't point it out enough. I remember Cenk Uygur went on a tirade. One of the first things I ever saw from Cenk Uygur was him going on a tirade because they did a study and they found out that like 3 or 4 years after the Iraq War, that the majority of Americans still thought that Saddam had WMDs. And he went on a tirade like I've never seen before or since about how every editor in every newsroom from coast to coast should be fired because they're failing their audience. Your whole job is to inform your audience. And if your audience doesn't know the facts on the biggest issue then you failed. I agree. I say that same thing about Russiagate. If people turn to you for information on Trump and Russia, and they don't know anything about what's actually happening in the Mueller indictments, they don't know that none of this stuff has been proven It's never been proven. In fact, people on the inside have been saying there's no evidence for years. What kind of people on the inside? Like former CIA director Mike Morrell said there was no evidence over a year and a half ago. I reported here on this show. Anyway, so that's their. And again, I gloat that we do a better job, but it doesn't make me feel good. I would rather CNN, the Washington Post, the New York Times, and MSNBC actually do a good job covering, but they can't because, as Chomsky points out, they're not there to give you the news. They're there to forward the value system of the elites. We live in an oligarchy. You know that. You know voting doesn't matter. You know voting doesn't matter. You know that. You know 70% of the country wants single payer, and nobody in power is going to give it to us, right? We voted for people like that said they would take in no corporate money, and they're going to overthrow the establishment. And they went to New York, they went to Congress, and they voted for that establishment to be the leaders. Those same people. And right now, those same people are silencing Ilhan Omar. So anyway, it doesn't make me feel good. This makes me feel horrible, but that's why we do this show, and it makes me feel badly that I do a much, much better job than most of the news media when it comes to stuff like war, Venezuela, Syria, Iraq, Libya, Russiagate, the corruption inside the Democratic Party. It's not hard to do. I know I pat myself on the back about it a lot. I'd rather not. I'd rather not have. I'd rather be doing more comedy sketches with Mike McRae. That's what I'd really rather do. So, again, this stunning. There's people poor in Venezuela. There's people living under bridges in every fucking city in this country. How you could fucking live through Iraq, Libya, and Syria and still be saying this shit about Venezuela, and you're on a news show? And you repeat government talking points about Venezuela. It makes me angry, and that's what gives me the energy to do this show, because it takes a lot of energy to do these shows. It takes a huge effort, actually. And a staff. Anything else to say about this stuff?
Well, I think the whole idea
I'm sorry. Jared has a thing.
Jared,
I'm sorry.
go to the mic.
15 million children in poverty in the U.S.
15 million children in poverty in the U.S. Thank you, Jared. 15 million children in poverty. 15 million children. Wow.
This program was started in 2005 and it was suspended in 2009.
Oh, so this program we're talking about here. So this Venezuelan so it started in 2005 and then it was suspended in 2009.
By the end of 2009. So it was there for the New York winter.
Okay.
And then right afterwards, it was suspended.
Okay. So there you go. And I wonder what those people are doing today for their home heating oil. I wonder how they're getting it today. We're announcing our dates for 2019. We're going to Ventura Comedy Club, March 31st, Tempe, Arizona, Austin, Texas, Portland, Chicago, and lots more. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a list of all our dates and live shows. And please become a patron. We give you hours of bonus material. And please make sure you're subscribed. Even if you think you're subscribed, they unsubscribe people every day, and you might be one of them. Check to make sure you're subscribed, and then you have to click the bell twice so they send you a notification when we drop a video. Thanks for your support.